As you've heard on Bridge City News, the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline expansion means around 1,000 Albertans have lost their jobs. Newly elected U.S. President Joe Biden revoked the presidential permit for the project. Now, to talk about this as a big supporter of our energy sector, Lethbridge MP Rachael Harder joining us from Ottawa. Rachael, how devastating is this for Alberta and the Canadian economies in general?
Yeah, Hal, thank you so much for the question. It is absolutely devastating. I mean, at the end of the day, we're talking about people. We're talking about their livelihoods. We're talking about their talent, their energy, their gifts, their abilities being invested into a sector that has traditionally held Canada in a very high standard. Look, gas, energy, it contributes. It's the largest contributor to our national GDP. It's extremely important for national unity, and not to mention, it's the fuel of life. It's what keeps us ticking. It's what allows us to do the things that we love to do day to day. And so for the Prime Minister not to go to bat for this industry and in particular for this project is absolutely shameful.
Now, you're in Ottawa. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke with U.S. President Joe Biden. Did our PM put any pressure on Biden whatsoever? And is there any way the Keystone XL can still be saved?
How unfortunately our prime minister did not raise this with Biden. It's so devastating. The prime minister had an opportunity to call the president when he was the president elect. Prime Minister Trudeau did not take advantage of that opportunity. And then when Trudeau did formally talk to President Biden, this didn't even make it into the phone conversation. It's absolutely devastating. And look, at the end of the day, I think what this shows is just how much this prime minister favors Eastern Canada over Western Canada. And again, it's to the detriment of hardworking Canadians who are, just wanting to keep our economy afloat and contribute to the society that we love.
Do you think maybe people in central Canada will start caring a little bit more about Alberta oil when they can't heat their homes anymore with natural gas? They can't put gasoline into their cars. I mean, people need oil, plus to build plastics, building roads. Oil is incorporated in so much into our economy.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, everything from the toothbrushes we use to the glasses we wear to the shoes we have on our feet to the homes we live in, oil is a part of our society and it's not going anywhere. The research actually shows that our need for energy is only going to increase in the years to come. This is where Canada has a huge opportunity to contribute positively. Look, if we don't develop this industry here within our own country, it forces us into a position where we have to take oil and gas from places like Saudi Arabia, where there are no environmental regulations, no human rights respects are low. Why would we do that? Why would we invest in unethical oil when we can develop the industry right here in our own country and do it in a really great way?
Do you think maybe the reason why Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is not in support of Alberta's oil, because specifically he's getting pressure from the environmental groups and the NDP propping up the minority government right now, the Green Party doing the same thing? Is that why? Because of the support he's getting?
I I think Trudeau is someone who functions very much with his own ideologies and certainly has his own interests. Unfortunately, those interests don't always align with what's in the greatest interest of Canadians as a whole. And I think that's really sad. I think Canadians deserve a prime minister who is going to fight for a unified Canada, which means every single province and the needs of every single region should be contended for by the prime minister. Canadians deserve that.
Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has been talking about a great reset for our local economy. And Rachael, that's made a lot of Canadians quite nervous. From what you've heard and seen on the Hill, what would that great reset actually look like?
Yeah, certainly Trudeau has talked a lot about resetting the economy, re envisioning Canada, moving forward, rebuilding. Canada is not a country that needs to be reset or rebuilt. We live in the best country in the world. We have phenomenal people with extremely fabulous talent and ability and gifts. These are the individuals who should be invited to the table to be a part of the solution, to be a part of solving the problems that we face. We shouldn't have a prime minister who is dictating to us what our needs are and what the solutions are. Canadians as a whole should be included in that process. And unfortunately, Trudeau is not doing that. Instead, he's choosing to be dictatorial in his leadership rather than inclusive. And Quite frankly, it's an abomination to democracy.
Now, what are you hearing in Ottawa, Rachel, with the potential of a spring election? Could we be going to the polls the next few months? The Prime Minister has repeatedly said he wants a majority government.
Yeah, I think it's very likely. The Prime Minister has definitely made it very clear that he wants a majority. In addition to that, we know from other events that the Prime Minister will certainly do whatever is in his best interest. Look, Hal, at the end of the day, as Conservatives, we certainly don't want an election. We know that Canadians don't want to go into an election right now. Definitely not in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, people are focused on their livelihoods, they're focused on their families, they're focused on their health, they're focused on their loved ones. That's where our prime minister should also be putting his focus. And instead, it looks like he's positioning himself to take advantage of Canadians during a vulnerable time. It's shameful.
Do you feel as well that perhaps the reason why the Conservative Party of Canada doesn't want to go into an election is because you want to give Canadians more time to get to know your leader, Aaron O'Toole?
Certainly, we want Canadians to get to know Aaron O'Toole and we want them to become familiar with our platform. We believe that we have a lot to offer, and certainly there's space within the big blue tent for many, many, many Canadians. And so we want to invite them in and we want them to be a part of our family. In addition to that, we want them to be well looked after, and we want the election to take place during a time when Canadians are going to be cared for, when their safety is not going to be put at risk. They deserve that.
You know, many people are very concerned that the vaccine rollout is taking forever thanks to delays from companies like Pfizer, BioNTech, Moderna. Was this poor planning on behalf of the Trudeau Liberals, or was it really out of their hands?
There's no doubt about it. This was due to poor planning from the current government. Unfortunately, they decided to put all of their eggs in one basket, and they failed to secure the type of contracts that they needed. And so as a result, Canadians are left on the hook. They're the ones that are feeling the repercussions of the inaction from the current government. When I look at a country like Israel, they knew what they were doing. They signed the right contracts, they fought for their people, and as a result, Israel is receiving vaccinations on time and able to roll them out in an effective and efficient manner. They will have about 70% of their population vaccinated by spring. That's incredible. All that took was leadership. It took leadership with vision. It took leadership that actually cared about the people. That's what we need in this country too.
Now, Prime Minister Trudeau also talked about the Made in Canada solution with the Novavax and the plant in Montreal, so we can have vaccines manufactured right here in Canada. But why did it take so long?
Hell, I don't know. I don't know. Again, I would just point to inaction and disinterest in our nation as a whole and in the well-being of Canadians. Sad.
Now, let's talk a bit about politics behind the scenes. Now, Derek Sloan, a social conservative, was recently kicked out of the caucus by Tory leader Aaron O'Toole. Many people view O'Toole as a red Tory, and maybe not even a true conservative. Are you concerned that you or maybe Leslie Lewis may be next? I mean, you're both social conservatives as well.
Not at all, Hal. I'm not worried. Aaron O'Toole has made it really clear that there is a spot for us in the party, and I'm really proud to serve under his leadership. He's made it also clear that there's this space to be diverse. We celebrate diversity of thought, diversity of belief, diversity of ethnicity, etc. And so there is space within the conservative movement for individuals from a different background with different beliefs. Ultimately, we have an opportunity here as the Conservative Party of Canada to welcome Canadians in from coast to coast and from all sorts of backgrounds. After all, isn't that what it is to be Canadian? We're a pluralistic country. We believe in multiculturalism. Shouldn't we be celebrating true diversity?
Now, the Conservatives are not in power, but are the official opposition. Tell me about some of the challenges you face to try and get federal help for people in Lethbridge, whether it's maybe combating the drug crisis or helping small businesses throughout this pandemic here.
Yeah, Hal, I appreciate the question. I think there are many challenges that we face, and certainly as a member of the opposition, our task at hand is to join forces with other parties in the House in order to garner their support to bring forward movements, legislation, et cetera, that we believe is in the benefit of the Canadian public. It's great when other parties are on board and we're able to move something forward. That that is cause for celebration, and those moments, of course, are really fabulous. At the same time, however, there are times when, as Conservative members, we fight for something, and unfortunately, we're not able to get it through because we don't have the support of other opposition parties. That said, as the Conservative member for Lethbridge, as the local representative, it's always my pleasure to bring an issue forward and to contend for it. And at the end of the day, I'll continue to work to my greatest ability to join forces with other parties and to garner their support and hopefully to move forward initiatives that are going to be beneficial to my constituents, but to Canada as a whole.
So more specifically, Rachel, what do you think are some of the biggest issues facing people here in southwestern Alberta as we're rolling into 2021 right now? We're already in February.
Yeah, certainly one of the biggest concerns that I'm hearing is definitely from local business owners. They've had to shut their doors or take severe measures that have resulted in cutbacks. And I think for so many in the Lethbridge region, they own and operate their businesses as a family. And so it's a family run business in most cases. And then on top of that, those that they employ, they treat like family. And so to have to let them go or to have to close their doors is just, it's so devastating for them on many levels, not only their livelihood, but also because they have that heart connection with those that they employ, they find it extremely difficult. So as the member of parliament, I definitely hear this as the number one concern.
Let's chat a bit now about Bill C6, the conversion therapy ban bill. Are there any new provisions in the bill allowing those who want to seek counseling to still receive it?
This bill is certainly not as clear as I would like it to be. The definition around conversion therapy just has not been given in the way that Canadians would desire. At committee, we've heard from a countless number of witnesses who have said the same. And so as a result, I am very concerned about what this bill would mean, not only for those individuals who would wish to speak to a counselor, but also for those who are practitioners in the medical field, parents, as well as school counselors, as well as faith leaders. They're having to move forward and function in a capacity where they're interacting with young people on a day-to-day basis. They're often sought out for counsel, for words of help, and they're left wondering what can they say and what can't they say. And so that's a really scary place for many of them to find themselves. It would really just take a very small tweak, and that is just a concrete definition.
I recently chatted with Alex Schadenberg from Euthanasia Prevention Coalition, and he's really concerned about the Liberals' new medically assistance in dying bill, C7, which would allow someone to take their own life within a 24-hour period. Rachel, what are some of your big concerns with this bill?
Hal, my number one concern is the speed at which this bill was pushed through. It just seemed like the Liberals had an agenda and they wanted to push it through and they weren't really willing to listen to witness testimony. Again, we heard from countless witnesses who raised concerns with this piece of legislation. And, we heard from people who have a disability and they said, look, we've actually already experienced pressure from physicians to consider euthanasia. Imagine what would happen if the parameters are loosened even further. And so there were many, many, many individuals who were calling for safeguards to be kept in place. Unfortunately, the Liberals turned a deaf ear to those individuals who were able to give us that firsthand account, that testimony. And the Liberals decided to push it through. I think as a result, it continues to keep those who are already vulnerable within our Canadian society. It keeps them in a place of even greater vulnerability. And I think that's very, very sad. As a country, we should want to look after those who need our care the most.
Let's talk about the popularity of your party right now, the Conservative Party of Canada. Very popular in the prairies, Alberta, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, but you still need to make serious inroads where a lot of the votes are located in central Canada, in Quebec and Ontario. What is it going to take to break through those barriers?
Well, Hal, I think we need to show Canadians that we're fighting for them. And I think fighting for them effectively starts by listening to them. And so right now, our leader, Aaron O'Toole, is taking the time to do a cross-country tour where he's hosting town halls. He's listening to Canadians. He's hearing what matters most to them. And then he's coming and meeting with us as a caucus. And together we're putting forward strategy on how we best fight for them. You know, I think Canadians deserve that. They deserve to have a voice. They deserve to be included in the democratic process. And unfortunately, under the current leader, they just haven't been afforded that opportunity. We'd like to give them that.
Lethbridge Conservative MP Rachael Harder, thanks for joining me today from Ottawa. Stay safe and warm.
Thanks, Hal. You too.